Satnam Aloha. So I missed my weekly message because I got behind the 8 ball, not feeling well physically, mentally, or spiritually. So anyway, yesterday I felt that I was rising out of the pit, right? Because evolution is moving at warp speed right now. And so there can actually be like a couple of mini dark nights of the soul just in one day, right? It's this solar plexus mutation, the emotional highs and the lows. So the emotional body, right, is going through a deep clearing so that this new awareness system can come online for humanity. You know, I've got the 3955 channel, the channel of emoting, and anyone who has this channel knows what I'm talking about. Going to the depths and then going to the highs and everything in between. But enough about me. How are you feeling this week? And share in your comments below, right, if you feel called. And I love reading them, right? And I really get a sense of where everyone is at, right, who follows this channel. So it helps me, it helps you, helps everybody reading. So this moment, I want to talk about Saturn and its movement into the 19th gate. So one of the themes of 2021 has been this channel of the 1949, the channel of interdependence. So these are the New Year's charts, which begins when the sun moves exactly into the 41st gate, first line, right? And so this is always around January 22nd of the new year, not January 1st. So this New Year's chart really gives us a lot of information on what we can expect for the new year. So remember that there's still time to join in for the 2022 webinar. Next Sunday, it's been bumped, and thank you for everyone that has signed up so far. I've been receiving lots of loving support back. Yeah. So it's going to be on Sunday, same time, same place, right? And that's November 21st. So this will give us a sense of the energies coming up and also put it into context because we're in a 7-year cycle that began in 2020, right? So we're in the 7-year cycle of experience as a humanity. And we're already 22 months in, right? In January 22nd, 2022, that will be 2 years in. So this year is a huge marker, right? 2027. It's right up there with 1987 and 2012. So it's actually a culmination point. So in 2020, Mercury was in the 19th gate to start off the cycle. And then in this year, the 19th was activated by Jupiter. So we got a break from this work in 2022, but then it's coming back in 2023, activated by the moon. So very, very emotional that year, 2023. So this year, I mean, the 19th gate has been getting worked over by Saturn. So if you see Saturn this year, let's look at the transits. Activating the 19th gate, Saturn, from February 21st to May 5th, and then June 11th to September 11th, and then just recently November 10th, and then that will end on January 13th, 2022. So remember, the new year doesn't really begin until January 22nd, 2022. Exactly begins then. Okay? So clearly this is an important theme, right? Not only for this year, but for our human evolution, which I'll get into in the video. So back to this channel, 1949, channel of interdependence. Now I talked about this in another video too, entitled, I think it's called The Breakdown of Society, about Jupiter going direct in the 49. Anyway, I'll link it at the end of the video and you can click and watch that to learn more. So the 1949, it rules our social contracts. These social contracts are so ingrained in us that we don't really notice them until we start to disobey them. So the 19, in a nutshell, there's lots to say about the 19, but I'm really keeping my focus for this video, right? In the nutshell is the pressure, because it's coming from the root chakra. So it's the pressure to get our basic needs met. This is food, water, clothing, shelter. Okay, so it's looking up at the 49, and the 49 is coming off the solar plexus, right? And it's saying, well, we'll fulfill these needs you have, but you have to obey these guidelines. You have to obey these rules. And if you don't obey, we will reject you from society. So it's one of the most basic primal ways that we're conditioned to fit into a tribe. So these social agreements or contracts are changing, right? Because this channel is going through a huge mutation. It's actually disappearing from the chart of humanity because of this solar plexus mutation. So let's bring this into a more elevated perspective, right? The big picture, like what's going on in terms of our evolution. Well, we go through major global cycles of evolution. This is beyond the Piscean age into the Aquarian age, beyond the Kali Yuga to the Sat Yuga, right? This is another global cycle of evolution, right? We're a species in movement. We're mutating constantly. That's just what we do as humans. And that's why we're on the top of the food chain. So we're at a pivotal time in our human evolution right now, right? So this doesn't happen through our own personal power, as the ego would like us to believe. Oh, I want to evolve now, so I'm going to will myself to do this, to do that. This is completely different. This is a force that's beyond our control. So in 2027, a lot is happening. And I talk a lot about this in my 2027 webinar. But today I just want to focus on the global cycle that we're leaving. It's called the Cross of Planning. And it's coming to an end in 2027. So this has been the background frequency for humanity since 1615. So the cycle goes from 1615 to 2027. It's coming to an end. So this global cycle started all of our institutions. This is when we started to create our institutions, like really setting the foundation for them. The government, right, our educational institution, our medical institution, legal, religious institutions. And the unconscious drive in this cycle was all about creating these organizational systems so that we can put them into place so that we could support humanity, right, to move forward. So a simple example of this is your house is on fire. Well, you call the fire department. If there's violence in your neighborhood, you call the police. If you break a bone and you can't walk, you call the ambulance. You go to the hospital, right? You go to school. You go to into the workplace. You're trained, right, to get an education and then get a job. You're hungry, you go to the grocery store. If you have no money, you go on welfare, you get food stamps. And I'm just talking about the Western world here. These institutions, there's all these support network for us as a humanity. And we've taken these things for granted. And this has created a dependency on these institutions. Well, because of this mutation of this channel, these support systems are going away. We can already see this happening. The defund the police movement, right? The get rid of the frontline workers, the military, right? Truckers, right? The supply chain, all of that, everything, all of that's leaving. And you may say, well, it's because of the cookies, right? These people aren't eating the cookies, and that's why it's happening. But this is an elevated spiritual perspective. Like, it's not about the mundane. There's a greater reason why this is happening, and this is what we need to look at, right? This is just the way our evolution is moving. We can't control this force of evolution, even though some arrogant people, right, are trying to take the reins of human evolution and direct them. It's a fool's game. because they too are feeling this pressure of change. Every human on this planet is feeling this pressure of change. We know something big is about to happen. And in 2027, we're going to be entering a whole new global cycle, right? Which is all about the individual, all about the individual. And so this background frequency that we live in, right, is going to drive us to individuate, to become our authentic self. So there's massive changes afoot, and we're coming to the tail end of this 412-year cycle. So let's go back to this 1949, right? The social agreement has changed. Now it's, well, we'll give you what you need to survive, barely, but now you have to eat the cookies, right? You got to get the cookie passport that lets us know you ate the cookies. You got to stand here, do this, don't do that. You can go here, right? And more rules of control will follow. And if you don't agree to our terms, you'll be rejected from society. This is the 1949 at work at the mundane level. And this is a huge ancient ancestral fear, is to be rejected from society, to become a social outcast, right? It's in our DNA, this fear. And the fear of the 19 is the shadow of codependency. It's the fear of being alone, right? What a deadly duo there. Rejected or being alone. So Saturn in the 19 enforces limitations. And this is how the punishment will be rolled out. Unless you follow Jupiter, which happens to be in the 49, right? That Saturn is going to enforce limitations. So if the shadow frequency at the mundane level, low frequency, Jupiter is telling you what to do. It's the law. And if you don't follow the law, then Saturn, the status quo, the outer authorities, they're going to place limitations on you. So let's bring this more into the light. We'll elevate this up into the spiritual realm, because Aquarian age, it's all about frequency. We need to learn about frequency to navigate through these times. Felt perception, we're feeling our way through life. We're not thinking our way through life. That's not going to work anymore. So if we go into emotional reaction, right, to these changes that we see out in the world, Saturn will punish us by not fulfilling our basic needs, right? We'll experience lack in our lives. And this transition is going to be a struggle. It's going to be a struggle for many people. So how do we raise the frequency here and work with these energies to spiritually evolve? Because the world is perfect. I know that's crazy right now to say, but it's actually perfect. It's the play of consciousness, but we can use this for our own spiritual evolution. That's the smart way, right? That's the smart way to evolve, spiritually evolve. That's why you're here, to fulfill your highest potential. That's why you're here. So use it. Use this energy. It's actually benefiting us. So Jupiter is telling us that we must change. We humans, we're not so good at change, right? So instead of reacting to the changes in the world, fighting and resisting and dragging your feet and kicking and screaming, we must go through a rebirth. We must individuate, right? That's what's happening now. We're all being pressured to change internally. So all the change is going on in here within us. This is the mutation. All the actions in here, it's not out there, right? It's the source is what's going on in the collective of humanity, and then we see this all reflected out in the world, in the external world. We see conflict, we see oppression, we see greed, we see narcissism. These are all those ancestral shadows getting churned up and thrown up into the conscious mind, right? So if we embrace these changes, as Jupiter tells us, we'd be smart to follow Jupiter, right? And go through a rebirth That's the gift of the 49. Then Saturn will leave us alone. Will leave us alone. And that is the gift of Saturn, right? It doesn't give you things, it just leaves you alone. That's the gift, right? When you're following Jupiter's laws. Saturn's the muscle, right? Jupiter says, I need them to do this, and they're resisting. I need a guy. So he calls up Saturn, right, to force things to go his way. And Saturn does all the dirty work for Jupiter. So when you embrace this rebirth, folded hands in the fires of purification, right? Take away what's not me, right? It's just surrender. Then your needs will be met because Saturn will leave you alone. But not in the logical, mundane way, but right, lower frequency. We really need to move away from that. You do what's right in your heart, right? Right for you. And the material needs will be met in surprising and unexpected ways. Right? This is our spiritual test. It's about putting your money where your mouth is in terms of spirituality. So the mutation of the 1949 says that we must move from codependency into interdependence. And this means letting go of our dependencies on external authorities, for one. The government, all these outside authorities, we've got to let go of them. Right? Thanks, but no thanks. I don't need your help. So this is challenging because we've been conditioned from day one to be codependent. It's part of the social agreement when we were born. So a few examples is being dependent on external authorities. The guru, the master, the priest, the monk, they know more than I do about spirituality. That person over there with all those letters behind their name, they're the expert. I better listen to them. The person wearing the lab coat, the stethoscope, they know what's best for the health of my body. That person's voice is more important than mine, right? Taking on the opinions of others without thinking for yourself. That person who holds my paycheck, I better do what they say. These are all examples of how we're codependent on the system and in our personal lives too, right? So this is all, the lesson is to let go of this. The Aquarian age is about self-reliance, learning to rely on yourself, big S self. So this channel is saying bye-bye to all of that nonsense, right? So that's why the lies and the deceit are so clear for the ones that have opened up their third eye. And it's just going to get worse and worse and worse until people finally wake up. So to move out of codependency is to face your fear of being alone, right? And we don't like to be alone because we're faced with our shadows, our traumas, our work, our inner work that we've been putting off. So humans are motivated by fear. It's just how we're designed. It's how we survived. And it's a binary. It's always a binary. So people, when they're feeling fear, they do one of two things. They either run to a group because they feel safety in numbers. I'll be safe in numbers. And they give up their authentic self and they go into the group ego. Or they completely run and isolate from all groups to avoid feeling this fear. So facing your fear of being alone is sitting in silence, facing your shadow, facing all those unresolved traumas, right? And what do you find? The big G's there with open arms, right? The divine is there with open arms. And then you realize that you're really not alone, right? You're connected to all of creation. And then the supernatural feeling of peace comes over you. But you've got to do your inner work first. And nobody wants, I feel like a broken record on this channel, right? This new cycle that's coming, it's all about the individual. It's all about going from out here and going inside, and to listen to yourself, your higher self, and listening for other ways of doing things, creative and new ways of doing things, letting go of the old. The old is going, it's disappearing. and listening to your own inner sage, right? Your own inner authority. This is what we're learning with this 1949. So speaking of which, generators and manifesting generators, you have to wake up now, right? You've got to embrace your own inner authority. You are 70% of the planet, right? And you're working through this ancient archetype of the slave. That's what's happening right now. That's what the generators and manifesting generators are working on. So you can go to the link below and get your free chart. It's all free, and see what type you are. Okay? And if you want to learn more about your type, you can get my recorded readings. It's 1.5 hours of information unique to you, and it shows you how you operate, what you need to eat that's unique to your vehicle, what environment you need to be in, how your brain and mind works, and what you're supposed to see out in the world. So it's a really good starting point to begin your deconditioning process, which begins at the cellular level, right? So it's all based on your chart, and it's very physical, this conditioning pattern that we're in, that we're letting go of this false self. And it all begins in the womb, gets laid out in the body in the womb. Okay, so check that out. And it's $25 off for the month of November. Okay, so there's information down below. And projectors out there, you got to start telling your generator friends and family to start listening to their sacral, which says yes or no. And you got to be firm, right? Because the projector has to be invited. You've got to ask, do you want to get out of this mess that you're in, right? Because I can help you, yes or no, right? And then if they say no, go to another generator. Chances are there's lots of generators around you, because you're only 20%. So this is what they need to obey, right? Is their sacral. The sacral down here says yes or no. They're responding to life, constantly responding to life in the now, right? Not up here in the mind. The generators and the manifesting generators, their mind is racing constantly, right? They're listening to their mind and they're getting into trouble. And we're seeing that out in the world, right? We're seeing a bunch of generators not operating correctly, and they're jumping off the cliff, right? So we need to get firm on this. Okay, so the 2022 webinar next Sunday, it's going to be, right, because I have more time. I can't go into depth here on YouTube videos. And it's going to be very informative, and it will give you information about next year and the energies and the lessons that are coming and how to work with them, and just to be in awe, right? This amazing time that we find ourselves in, right? In this time period of history. And just know the Aquarian age is all about, I have everything that I need inside me. So a good method, a little mantra you could say this during this whole transit until January 13th, Saturn is in the 19, is to, whenever you're faced with a challenge in your life, right, where you're feeling, I can't do it, blah, 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 say, I'm self-reliant. Right? I'm self-reliant. I can handle anything that comes in my field. And when you say I'm self-reliant, what comes up, right? You're planting this through repetition in your subconscious mind. Everything that's not self-reliant, where you're not self-reliant in your life, you'll be shown very, very quickly, right? So that's a good method to use. But if you want to go deeper into the shadow of codependence, like go really, really deep into it in the mother wound, because that's where it all starts. This mother wound webinar series, it's over 6 hours long. Yeah, you want to check that out, you can go and get that on my website. Okay, so thank you for subscribing and ringing the bell and sharing, and please leave your comments below. You can follow me on Telegram, Instagram, Odysee, and Facebook. But better yet, sign up for my free newsletter so that we can stay connected if all these platforms happen to go down, right? So you can find all that on top of the information box. And enjoy your evening and your day. And I hope to see you soon. I hope to see you next Sunday. But I'll see you in my next video. Okay. Satnam Aloha.